next we are talking about Chromeskull Laid to Rust 2 from 2011. The movie picks up pretty much immediately following the first movie. And in fact we get just a little bit of overlap from the end of the first movie to the beginning of the second. So it seems like the Chromeskull, the killer, is dead, and the gang go drive away. But then a group of men come and sort of try to save the killer. And it turns out that there is a sort of organization working with Chromeskull to record and, I guess, probably distribute the videos that he makes. And as they're trying to help this guy, the guy got really screwed up at the end of the first movie. There's other characters who come along and also meet the wrath of Chromeskull and stuff. Yeah, I'll be honest, I didn't care for this movie. I've seen this one before and I didn't care for it then either. And this is something that we can probably get into discussion with, but the addition of the sort of organization behind Chromeskull, I thought was, I never liked things like that. If it's going to be a slasher, let it be a slasher. But having like a whole group of people working with this one serial killer just to, it just takes away something from the movie. Like if Jason was working with like 16 other people.
The FBI.
Yeah, I know, and other movies have done this too, but I just really did not care for the direction this one went. So despite enjoying the first movie to a certain extent, plot elements of this one just didn't do it for me. But what were your thoughts on this one, Chucky?
Yeah, one of my notes about it was how much the organization sucks. Yeah, it's just this one has a pretty terrible plot. All the different things unfolding in the movie just go all in the wrong direction as to where you'd want it to go after having seen that first movie. This one has a lot of intense violence, and I'd say they probably even ramp it up a little bit more from the original. And I recall the director saying that the MPAA had a problem with every single death in this movie,
and
and he's saying, well, that means I did my job. Well, I'm sitting there thinking, well, okay, well, you did your job in the kills, but what about the rest of the movie? It's not a movie that just has a kill every 1 minute. And the thing is, the rest of the movie is pretty much, I'm not going to say a gigantic failure, but it certainly goes backwards. They start off with the lady from the original who, I can tell, you know me, I know my titties, and they changed the titties. They changed it on me, and they thought I wouldn't notice, but I did notice. Not that the replacement wasn't good in her own right, and we actually get to see the titties in the shower. But
so that's why this movie gets at least a 5.
Well, look, it got it off to a bad start, and the worst thing is that they eliminated the titties. I know that's a spoiler, but it happens pretty quickly. So, if there's any plot out there that you shouldn't give a fuck about spoiling, it's probably this movie, because the plot does not help the movie.
Out of interest, did you watch the post-credit scene?
Yeah, the interrogation. That actually was even more terrible, I thought.
Wife of Chromeskull.
Yeah, she kind of goes from almost like 0 to 100 by the end of that scene. It just, I don't know. It definitely wasn't needed, and
I was sort of hoping she would give birth in the interrogation room, and the baby would have a Chromeskull.
Yeah. But I'd say the thing about this one, in comparison to the original, also is that even though the original, it doesn't have much of a plot, it doesn't have great acting, but at least it had, I guess, sympathetic characters. And this one doesn't really have sympathetic characters. So, you want to sympathize with the blind girl and maybe the one survivor from the previous movie. I didn't really care. I still didn't even care too much about those. I didn't even really see the point in the blind girl's story in the movie. It just seemed like something thrown in for whatever reason.
Yeah, and never really played any part in any of it, which I was so surprised about.
Yeah, it's just disappointing that they've taken such a step back. If you take the plot out of the movie, they're still doing a lot of the same things, which still revolves around all these violent, gruesome kills. And even though I don't require a lot more from my slasher movies, just taking the plot and flushing it down the toilet and making it so convoluted, and it just didn't help.
One scene that bothered me was the I know that Chromeskull is, I guess, sort of the leader of this organization, but the one main business guy who was like his, I guess, second higher up. When Chromeskull lets the guy know, hey, we will no longer be needing your services, what's the guy do? The guy goes to get a tattoo and then shaves his head, I guess, to prepare to take over the mantle of Chromeskull, even though, I don't know, that scene where to me, he's pretty clearly threatened, saying, hey, we don't need you, and the guy should be smart enough to say, oh, hey, this is probably not a good time for me to get a tattoo, but he goes to get, I don't know anything about tattoos, but I'm going to have to imagine that tattoo design that he got, that would probably at least be 30 minutes, if not more.
I'd say even more, yeah.
Yeah, so the fact that
couple of hours, to be honest.
The fact that he goes to get a tattoo like that, I didn't get it. And I don't know why Chromeskull wasted any time. He should have just gone to take care of that guy right then and there, but I guess he didn't need to. But I mean, talk about a stupid character choice in a movie that's filled with quite a few stupid character choices.
Yeah, he probably thought he was using initiative and was trying to impress his boss.
It's quite impressive.
Yeah,
I will say, on the topic of the kills in this movie, I don't know if most of the death scenes here as memorable as the first movie, but I will say there was one I really enjoyed, being when Chromeskull takes care of a couple of police officers in this enclosed cage room, which I really enjoyed that scene. And it's not a particularly long sequence, but it had I thought it was quite a bit of fun, and I had probably more fun with that one than most of the other kills in the movie. So.
But you also got to think how stupid those cops were. I mean, there's 3 of them, and all 3 of them get in that cage. I mean, there's no reason for all 3 of them to do it.
I sort of like that line, hey, you should cuff him. Fuck it, you cuff him.
Yeah. I mean, even before shit went down, you just knew all 3 of them getting in that cage was going to be disaster for them. There's a couple name or two in the movie who some people may be familiar with, like Danielle Harris. I didn't necessarily think her character did all that much in the movie. I guess we'll see what happens if she comes back for this third one that they're trying to do. And hopefully the third movie actually, I don't envision them going backwards on this plot, but hopefully they can find a way to steer it back on course.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if they wiped out the existence of the second movie, I'd be okay with that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't mind that now he's I mean, at the end of this movie, we see that he's in a very public boardwalk. Well, he's on, like, the Hollywood Strip or something.
Yes.
And, I don't mind him being out in the open like that. Yeah. I mean, like I said, the plot, they just need to not be so ridiculous with it. And
I will say one thing that sort of bothered me about the end, and I don't know, maybe the third movie, if it comes out, may be a very good movie. But it reminds me of the Hostel movies. The first 2 Hostel movies took place in Slovakia, and then for the third movie, they went to Las Vegas, and it completely ruined the whole vibe of my opinion, the Hostel series. So if this next movie is going to be, as opposed to like rural Texas or wherever these movies take place, it's going to be like in the middle of a crowded city. I mean, I don't know, it's just not going to have the same type of vibe. Now, I don't know if that would be a detrimental factor, but it's something I thought would potentially be worth noting.
No, well, to be honest, they've already ruined the vibe in the second movie.
Well, yeah, it's true. Yeah, Chromeskull is a sequel that I thought was pretty poor. It's not the worst sequel I've ever seen. I would actually maybe argue Vacancy 2 is maybe worse, but this one is not great. It takes away a lot of what the first movie does well, and while it has so decent gore, like Chuck and I say, the story is just pretty poor. This is definitely a movie I would consider below average, and I'd probably give this one a 5 out of 10.
Yeah, it is a pretty disappointing sequel to what I thought was I'd say a good modern slasher movie. And this one just kind of takes everything from the original and throws all the sympathetic characters out the window and introduces a really stupid backstory or plot. And yeah, the plot is what actually makes this one worse. I'm going to give it a 6, which may be a little generous still. I'm not sure. But I gave the original one an 8, and I think that's a fair indication of the drop-off between the two. Hopefully that third movie does kind of get back to the vibe of the original, and it doesn't get too much more crazy with its silly plot.